Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Kap Or No Kap. I am your host, Kevin C. Meggett. Joined with me by community organizer, former city councilman, never left his community, Mr. Andy King.
Honor and a pleasure, good man. Thank you for joining me today.
Love having you, always. Like, chop up some good game. I'm gonna jump right into it, man. Like, I haven't been on here in a minute, so everyone around the world, I miss you guys. I hope y'all miss me, so I just want to jump right into some political things that have been going on. First thing we can talk about really is these mass shootings. And I say shootings because, you had, believe since the Buffalo incident, you've had two more.
Yes.
And so, where do you think this is coming from?
America has a track record that they refuse to accept exists.
Okay.
And I think, I always say, in order to recover, you have to uncover. And those who have perpetrated crime, distaste, bigotry, hatred, in all forms of their communication, in all forms of their economics, in all forms of just their existence, now you're watching it manifest itself. So what do I mean by that? We have rules in this country that's always separated this country from day one.
Right.
And then you have each state having their own position on how race relations should be. And then you have the economics that put the people run the world, people run this country, and those who are trying to get the haves and have-nots against one another. And we cannot negate the color barrier that's in between that infiltrates all that as well. And then let's turn the tide to the communication piece, whether it's in the media or it's in the music that's being played or to the television shows that people watch regularly or to the video games that young people are engaged in, and making that fantasy world acting like it's not going to have an impact on reality. So now when you get a 18-year-old white boy up in Buffalo decide it's okay to get a semi-automatic weapon, dress itself up in armor like this is tour of duty game, and then go out and go into the black community, only the black community, that just wasn't something that was just say, I just feel like doing it today. I have a mental illness. That was a well thought out plan from years of propaganda, years of infiltration into the mind of the hatred and the bigotry of America as exuded on its people. So now when, as Malcolm X said, now the chickens are coming home to roost, we're acting like, oh, wow, we got all these other, no, that has been the format. And people keep forgetting that this country was built on hatred, murder, stealing, and theft. I call it for what it is.
Right.
And while we're in the 2022 trying to figure out and understand it, we can't forget 1872. Right. If you could go back to the
1772.
Right, exactly. You have to go back to realize how we are here today. And then once you can uncover those ugly truths about this country, then we can figure out how we pull it together. And I'll stop with this. I was asked the question, what can we do to fix it?
That's what I was getting ready to ask you.
This is something that's not going to be fixed by man. For me, it's not going to be fixed by man. This is something that's a higher power that has to infiltrate. And I'm a spiritual guy, I'm a biblical guy, and he tells us we're fighting against principles and principalities in high places. And in order for us to figure this all out, first of all, we got to start with love. And I'm not talking about lust. I'm talking about love.
Right.
Love for oneself. Then love for oneself translates to love for neighbors, family, friends, and community.
Right.
So now I'm looking at a place of love, and if I'm in love, my economics are okay, so I'm not trying to hurt you because of my economics. I love myself, so I'm not trying to hurt you because your skin tone is different than mine. Right. I'm not trying to hate on you because your language is a little different than mine.
Right.
But more importantly, if there's true love in the air, then you can find a real solution because love conquers it all, and the economics don't matter anymore because the dollar is not the issue of the day.
That's
so
right.
People are fighting for the dollar. And the dollar creates so much hate and division when there's no love in the room.
Right. and I'm glad you said that because a lot of people don't realize love is a powerful tool just like hate.
Yes. Oh yes.
We just don't know how to apply it.
Yeah. So that's hate themselves.
The way you just explained it is a well thought out way of how to apply love. Like people say, knowledge is power, and I say. I always say, no, it isn't. It's the application of knowledge that becomes power, you know what I mean? So you touched on something I want to talk about. You talking about the culture, how all of this hateful stuff impacts on the culture, like the music and stuff like that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I went to an event that you had. It rained that day, but you had an event called Boys to Men.
Yes.
And we were talking about the effect of drill rap music on our society. And you had my son. My son actually, shout out to him. He actually put it very elegantly. I mean, very, very well said. And so you can make positive music just as popular as
and profitable.
Right, and profitable as negative music. You're gonna have this problem. How do you suggest we do that? Because the Bronx District Attorney is actually echoing the same thing that you mentioned.
Right. The biggest thing, as I say, you can do right now is those. I'm going to talk strictly to those artists who are successful. And what I mean by those who have been in the game 20 and 30 years, 15 years, who might have scaled back, transitioned into the Hollywood movie style life, or investing their monies in that. And so just to say a few, like P. Diddy needs you to come back. You know, those, even some of our big actors, you know, Denzel does wonderful work, need them to come back. You know, some of our high artists, Jay-Z and Beyonce, whatever, you need you to come back to the neighborhood. And what I mean by come back to the neighborhood, I mean being able to really invest in that positive music. You know, that'll tell a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old that you can make it when you're talking about me being educated. And you're using terminology and you're using words that shows that you have a vocabulary. One of the greatest rappers that I respect is Rakim, because I listen to him as a lyricist, being able to spit lyrics without repeating himself constantly, but let alone never using words that demoralizes his people or his women or his family.
Right.
This is what the communication is today, which perpetuates the violence that some of our young brothers are going through, and then they get paid. And as I said, you get paid to deliver that message, to talk about another brother. Before you can even spend that $1 million, you already got killed. So the white music producer who is funding you right now, he ain't spend that $1 million on you, because you already got wiped out 2 months after you signed the contract.
You want to hear something interesting? And they know this.
Yes.
They not only end up with the catalogs, but they put life insurance on these guys. You know what I mean? So it's a very, very, very vicious cycle.
Yes, it is.
It's something I definitely would want to continue to explore, how the culture has been so exploited. You know, and don't get me wrong, it's we all get exploited. It's how do you exploit me? It becomes the issue. You know what I mean?
How do I want to be exploited?
Right. I mean, like, you could, if I talked about just, you know, randomly killing dogs, right? I would have the Humane Society on my neck.
Yes. Michael Vickers one.
You know what I mean? Right. That's a great example. Or if I said that about any other culture, it wouldn't get any airplay. It wouldn't get. But when we do it amongst ourselves, to ourselves, it's highly promoted, and that's only because. And now here comes the tinfoil kufi. It's because I believe that we live in a real system called white supremacy, racism. We need to take responsibility as men and do the things that we're supposed to do, but don't think that there isn't a shadow government that moves things that isn't supposed to move, you know, naturally. They'll move it unnaturally, and it's really, when you look at the people who are at the very, very top, and I'm not even talking about Jay-Z and Diddy, because they're not really at the top.
True that.
You know, they're not at the bottom either, but they're not at the top. They're not the decisions. Like, so if you have an artist that's talking about killing another artist, someone greenlighted that. That was greenlighted. Yeah. Someone said, we could market and promote that. Right. Those are the people that you kind of hold accountable, because the music industry, you know, basically is ran by, honestly, a half a dozen white racist billionaires.
I cannot disagree with that. And I would ask our millionaires and those who are transitioning into billionaires, how do we come back and teach our family to use the scripture? How do we teach our people how to fish, as opposed to paying them for that fish? And then they don't go on and teach the next person how to fish. So if you made it, how do you set up shop back in the same neighborhood of people who spend the money that allowed you to become a billionaire, a millionaire. They spending their hard-earned money to buy your music, to buy your records, to buy your hats, to buy your clothing, to buy your nail polish. Right. How do you come back and set up a house in the middle of that same neighborhood to empower that community and the neighbor with positive energy? And to the neighborhood, you got to stop buying the music. You got to stop selling yourself short. But if you've been told, again, it goes back to the messaging and the communication of who we are in our communities and our neighbors, especially in the black community. We've been taught that we are not worthy. So if you've been taught that you're not worthy at 14 and 15 and no one's pumping positive energy into you, you're only being fed the negative energy by the brother who's sitting next to you who don't know any better himself. So it's a vicious cycle within that little box that you stay in. Got to grab you out that box. But more important, we got to break that box open.
That's absolutely right.
And the people who are doing it right and know how to do it right can't be scared to come back into the neighborhood to help the young brothers who are trying to figure out their lives.
That's absolutely right. And it's interesting, man. It's I don't know. I don't know. You know what else is amazing to me with the culture? There are a handful. I probably could count on one hand. Foundational Black American artists. Shout out to my Caribbean, my African, my Latino brothers and sisters. But truth be told, I don't know. I think, they say idle mind's a devil workshop. I mean, I have idle time and I think about things, and it doesn't mean I'm the devil, but it doesn't. I just we're not really represented in our own, and we started that culture.
Right.
That's the truth of the matter. I mean, we could go back and forth. A lot of people love to credit like Bam, Flash, and Herc, and make them the trinity of hip hop. And I say very, very vigorously that that's not true. The elements of hip hop. Now, did they partake? Absolutely. Herc actually brought it out with the speakers and the parties. That's a very Caribbean thing, But the elements of hip hop was always there, and it was always foundational. And if you want proof of that, you look at Muhammad Ali. They just didn't call it hip hop. It wasn't hip hop. You look at the Lost Poets. You look at Gil Scott Heron. The elements. I forgot the brother who Here Comes the Judge. The elements they were rapping.
Yeah.
And so we're asked to, I think, my whole thing is, my biggest thing is to conserve foundational Black American culture.
Right.
Because I feel sometimes that we are underappreciated, and I've also feel like we have now become guests in our own house. Not only by white supremacy. I think white supremacy is perpetuating this, but by other cultures. And so everyone will hang their flags, and they could be happy and proud of where they come from. But the second we do it, it's oh, how dare you, we're all black. Nah, miss me with that. I digress.
It is what it is, and for your viewers today, you're talking about hip hop music. We talk about the music, how it has an impact, how it's influenced. Just want to let everybody know that the month of June was declared Black Music History Month.
Right.
Back, I believe, was President Ford Ford who did it. And then President Barack Obama in 2009 changed the name and called it African American Music Appreciation Month. So we're in that month right now. So it's only fitting to talk about the beginning of hip hop, where its origins come from, the rhythm and rhymes and the raps and the dance of a Muhammad Ali at a press conference.
But you know what I realized? I was watching on Prime yesterday, because I also love blues.
Okay.
I love the blues.
Okay.
And it was a very similar allegory with blues and rock and roll.
Yes.
When I tell you it started out one way, it was jacked. We're going to take it, and we're going to repackage it and give it back to you.
Yeah.
So it could be something else. So it's not even an original storyline. It's almost like it's a rerun.
You hit the nail on it is a rerun from the scat that used to happen in the 20s for blacks, and there was the scat and there was the rap that was going on. And every generation created another form of expression through the music, the black folk. And because America is who America is, we are the foundation of so many things that are on this earth. And because we are the progenitors of so much creativity, they snatch it, they take it, they rebrand it, make it theirs, or try to act like they're the ones or the origin of it when they are not. So today, when we start talking about, you go back in the music history, every time we came up with something, everyone keeps asking the question, Hound Dog, Elvis Presley, but it was Big Mama Thornton.
Big Mama Thornton. Right.
Who wrote the song.
Right.
They took
and
it
she
from
got
her.
ripped off.
Yeah, right.
She never got her due.
How many people got, even today, I'll never forget, and I love her dearly, I honor her, and I will continue to treasure her. She's a jewel. She just came out with another album about three months ago on Melba Moore. They did the same thing to Melba Moore in the 60s. They did her dirty. Actress, talented up the wazoo, and they just took her whole essence from. I'm glad that the presence of the Lord stuck with her, made her strong, and today she's still touring the world at 70.
Amazing voice.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Some people can't even hit that note at 17. She's hitting it in her 70s.
We're gonna take a real quick commercial break, and then I want to come back and I want to talk about this past weekend, this past Saturday, Chirac Day.
Okay.
All right. But we'll take a real quick commercial break. This is Kap or No Kap, Mr. King, Kevin Meggett. We'll be right back. And we're back. Kap or No Kap. Had to take that quick commercial break. Got to pay those bills, And for those that are out there that can see me, please advertise with Millennium TV. We need the advertisement. We could use it. We're seen all around the world, and you definitely want to advertise on this show because I get a lot of controversial emails, so I'm sure it's being watched, and as well as Mr. King. All right. So. Chirac Day, yes. Saturday. Yes. It was so dope, man. I was so tired, but I'm glad I came. So for those that don't know, Mr. King, Chirac, shout out to Chirac, first female MC from the Bronx. And Mr. King, what made you decide you wanted to honor MC Chirac?
Well, back in 2019, as a council member, we were doing a casting call because they was doing a movie on her story. So we had a big day cookout at the Altuat campus over on Steinwick Avenue. And, in the process of kids come out, the events that was happening, the cookout, so we're presenting an award, and I said, you know what? She's the first ever. Declare her June 1st, Chirac Day in the borough of the Bronx. So went back downtown, we did the whole shebang, and every year since then we celebrate. But ironically enough, the second year in 2020 to celebrate her because she is the mother of hip hop.
Right.
She broke the barriers in a field that was nothing but boys at that time. We're talking about a 16-year-old sister. First, B girl. She was a B girl, and then turned that B girl into rapping.
Right.
So in 2020, the pandemic hit. So I was like, well, what are we gonna do for Chirac Day? So. No, all the parks were closed. Everything was shut down in the city.
You did it virtually.
I did it virtually.
I remember.
But I drove all the way to Texas where she lives.
I remember that too. Like Dallas or something.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Northern Texas.
Somewhere up in the hills of Texas. And everybody got on, from the Big Daddy Kane,
I know, everyone was there.
To Melly Mel's, to Ralph McDaniels, you name it, everybody sparked.
Busy B, Sparky, I remember that. I was on there, Angie B,
Rodney Stone, everybody, Curtis Blow, everybody
Angie
was
Stone,
on. Yeah. So it was a real delightful energy, but she deserved it, and she earned it. It's almost like going back to, you know, those first black comedians like Amon Mabley, you know, who first to do it on television, to come in and break the grounds. And like some kids today, when we start talking about youth, we talk today, and they say, well, you know, Jennifer Hudson, blah. I said, well, you know, if there was no Aretha Franklin, there's no
There would never be no Jennifer Hudson. That's right.
So if there was no Sha Rock, there'd be no Cardi B.
Right.
There'd be no Mary J. Blige. There'd be no MC Lights. There'd be no Queen Latifah. And these sisters give homage and pay tribute to Sha Rock, because they know what she was going through, because she would be the only girl in the club, on the stage, on the microphone, and everybody else is nothing but guys. Right. You know, so that's some phenomenal.
And shout out to her group, because they don't they get sometime not highlighted in it. So shout out to Funky 4 Plus. Well, I think she's the plus one. She's the plus one, right? So shout out to them, man. You know, I would love. This is the second or third year that they physically met in the park.
Yes, it's the second year we physically met in the park. It's the fourth year.
So I hope the third is a charm. I hope that if Sha Rock's listening, I hope you bring out. Find Funky wherever they at. And y'all perform, man. That's the joint. That was my joint.
That was the joint. Yeah, true.
But I had a great time, man. Y'all honor DXT. I think he's like so overlooked.
I know you mentioned him.
He is so overlooked.
Yeah.
This man got a Grammy for there wasn't even a hip hop category yet. But he turntablism started with him, where a lot of people say, oh no, that was Flash. Flash actually kind of bit that from him, you know. But what he did was his name was DST, then he changed it to DXT. And he was always my mentor as a kid. What I loved about him, and to this day, shout out to you, D, he never, like you, never abandoned his community.
Yeah.
When I was that young kid breakdancing, and he's going all over the world with Herbie Hancock, with Rocket, he still stopped where he was at, because his mother was still living in the projects, and he stopped, he engaged in a conversation, always taught me to be, represent yourself, be the best you could be.
Right.
Like something like a big brother would tell you to do.
Good.
And so, I just hope, with this current administration in the Bronx Borough President's office, that y'all do right by him and give him a street sign as well, because it's well overdue. As far as I'm concerned, he's more accomplished than anyone in hip hop that y'all gave a street sign to, because he has 2 Grammys. He has the Grammy with Rocket with Herbie Hancock, and then he scored Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre's I think it was a movie or something, or a documentary. So he's very accomplished, man, and I just hope they do the right thing.
Well,
but you guys did the right thing by him, and Sha Rock did the right thing by him, and to see him actually scratch to Rocket was just huge.
Yeah,
that was so huge. But
hey, if you could have 50 people, 150, 200 people at a party. If the DJ was horrible, the party was horrible.
That's right.
So, DJs were so instrumental to making the parties jump all. That's why it was.
You wouldn't have hip hop without the DJ.
Exactly. And as the rappers, the MCs would say, if there ever was a mistake, it was up to the DJ to fix it. You didn't know there was a mistake happening. Right. And so they were definitely a dynamic duo between our MCs and our DJs. So congratulations to all the honorees yesterday, and I applaud you. Thank you for still staying on the grind, still entertaining us. And my knees are still hurting from that dance you had me doing the other day.
I had a great time, man. That was really good. It was awesome. I can't wait till next year. I went to DC. Well, as you know, I've been in this big fight with veterans in VFW, which is, for those that don't know, I'm a war vet. I served in the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf, the very first Gulf War. I'm sitting here dating myself, but back in 1990. And I don't think veterans get their proper due. That's just what it is. I've been in a fight with this VFW, Gun Hill Post 271, which is on 720 Nareed Avenue in the Bronx. And so basically, I kind of thought that it was being mismanaged. It was inappropriate behavioral patterns because we had an adult daycare that was actually taking over the VFW posts. And if anyone knows, any veterans out there that are watching, VFWs are congressional charters that can only be that which it is. So it can only be the congressional charter stipulates that it can only be a VFW to help veterans, and it wasn't. And so I was getting into kind of go a back and forth with the VFW national and regional, and there was an adult daycare named Rain that was there. I didn't want to highlight Rain because my issue was never with any of those seniors. I don't, shout out to seniors. I hope to grow to be one, in about 10 years I will be one. But I was a veteran first. And so it was just a mess, Mr. King. I got a letter from them today, actually. A lot of the things that I was basically accusing them of, they never responded to it. They just basically said, we're going to try to make it where it's functional and operational. And I may just actually work with that because that's my end game plan anyway, is to make sure that those veterans have resources. However, it's amazing when you look at the scope of the people that make up VFWs, right? We're like you're looking at like a white piece of paper with a one black dot. Wow. That's how much, and what bothers me is they're not being held accountable because they stole. They stole, they cheated, and they cheated from the people that they say that they care about, which were other veterans. And I could highlight it, but this is when you play chess and you worrying about, sometime your next move, you got to be strategic because it could be very critical.
True.
I don't want to hurt other veterans, so I'm just kind of weighing that out. But I was back to my Washington, D.C. trip. I was in Washington, D.C. at a homeless veteran conference, and I physically got sick to my stomach because they're high-fiving and they're gloating and they're saying, oh, we've given out 106 HUD-VASH vouchers since, I forgot how many years.
106?
106,000, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
106,000 HUD-VASH vouchers. I forgot how many years it was, but it was in a span of years. And they're saying, we're ending homelessness, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's probably 106,000 homeless veterans just in the state of New York alone. And y'all are, what? Like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah. Like, veterans are so depreciated, and it's not like that in other countries. I mean, we could point our fingers at Iran, we could point our fingers at North Korea, and all of these Russia, but I wonder if they disregard their veterans the way we do.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, who's to say if they do? I don't know personally.
I don't know, do I.
But the way history has always told the story of how communists and how socialists actually, they took care of those who went to war, who came back from war. And in our country, we fought to protect our veterans when they come back from war. I'm like, how do you come back from war and serve in this country, and then you get cast aside because of an illness or mental illness or physical illness? And as history has told us, that a lot of times government put tests on their own soldiers. Right. So if you tested a number of things, agents and other type of chemicals on your own soldiers, only to have them returned back to put them in the trash can. So that's a problem. Again, it goes back to, I talked about this country, how we got into a place right now that the violence is so prevalent. Well, there's a lot of things that have created violence, whether it's a mental violence, a physical violence, or just societal violence. It all stems from the beginning of who runs the country. Right. And I applaud you as a veteran. My dad was a veteran in Korea, so I have nothing but love for veterans, but I have nothing but love for everybody. But our country must. There are certain things, certain entities, seniors, children, and veterans are three life forces that should never have to go lobby government, because children didn't ask to be born. They were born by people, human adults. Seniors have put the time in and have required and earned the right to be protected. And the people that who put on the uniform to protect your mission should be able to come back home and live freely and comfortably with whatever assistance that you get. Again, if there is a gentleman who can spend $44 billion in buying a social media account, something's challenging about a system when someone can actually put $44 billion on the table.
You know where, in my humblest opinion, respectfully, you know where the crime comes in? Here we are, veterans, you have veterans in California, in Skid Row, that are living in tents with American flags on it. I seen the same thing, ironically, in D.C. They were people living in tents. Their homelessness looks different than our homelessness.
Right.
Homelessness in New York City is a business. It's profitable.
Yeah.
It's and you're going to have to take the profit. You got to take the corporate plutocracy out of it. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Someone has to service them, but it shouldn't be, let me service the problem to keep the problem going.
Right.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm starting to believe, you know, like how many people, Mr. King, or how many residents in Co-op City?
Oh, roughly it was about 70,000, 66,000 folks.
This is what this is a proposed plan that I have. Why don't we create another variation of a co-op city somewhere in America and make those housings just for veterans?
Like they do on Army bases.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. You know how many Army bases are empty that can be considered housing? And then the flip side is, I think it was Fort Bragg. I want to say it's Fort Bragg in New Jersey. They can't even drill there because they have refugees from Afghanistan there that's living in the barracks.
Okay.
All right. So, what are we like? How are you over prioritizing the people that are? You have homeless veterans now, right? That don't have a place to live, and you have vets that just came home from Afghanistan that could be homeless, but you have the refugee. It's an oxymoron. I mean,
welcome to America.
And the same thing even with in the Ukraine. You don't have money to push to veteran issues, but you have money to prioritize the Ukraine over us and their stability. It's sickening. It's
sickening, confusing.
It's
the millions of dollars I saw that's to send into Ukraine, but
billions. It ain't millions. It's billions. It's something like $80 billion. $80 billion.
And you got people here who put life in splits and can't keep the lights on.
And I mean, like, it's not for me to throw a dart at the Biden administration, but there you go. I mean, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, for real. Like, I've never seen that. And I don't think Trump is the answer to it either. It's just the end of the day, the bottom line, Republicans and Democrats y'all gonna have to grow up. Because the only people that's really suffering this are the American people by y'all not working together. And miss me with the whole I'm closing 3 bases, right? That's what Biden was saying. I'm going to close 3 VA, not bases, 3 VA hospital branches.
Right, okay.
Right? 3 VA hospitals, yes, in New York. This is a proposed plan that the Trump administration put out. If you hate this man as much as you claim you do, why would you even entertain that? Like, we're not doing that. Bye. But you're entertaining it because they're playing politics with veterans and their issues. He's not going to close those. What he's going to do is get Chuck Schumer to become savior. We're going to get Chuck Schumer to become the savior of the day. We're going to put a knife through the heart of this proposed plan. He looks like a savior, and the VA stays open. Now, as a veteran, what did I get? I got nothing. But now I feel like you didn't take nothing from me, but I feel like I'm beholding my vote to you because you didn't take nothing from me. That game got to stop. That's a 3-card Monty, 3-shell, watch the hand type of game, and shame on the administration for that. And I mean, all I could tell you is a lot of blue in America, in this midterm election, is going to turn purple and very well may turn red.
You have a valid point. A lot of people are frustrated with the philosophies and the engagement of government today, and people want to see results that help improve their lives, not results that improve the lives of the elected official. So yes, it's going to be a new day. There's going to be a lot of surprises, but one of the things that they did do in the midst of all this, many people may not have been paying, I hope you were paying attention. Early in the month, there was a redistricting.
I was actually getting ready to bring that up.
Yeah,
So
there was a congressional redistricting, and sadly enough, they took the power of a number of communities, especially we're talking about the state of New York and the city of New York. In Brooklyn, they looked to break up a black community in Brooklyn that was represented by Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries, one of the senior majority leaders in Congress, fought back, organized, and they put the district back in place. That they had actually moved him out of his own district when they redistricted.
So they did put it back in place.
Yeah,
he was supposed to run against.
Well, they would have where him and Yvette Clarke.
So they're not going to run against each other.
No, they put it in a place that they did it right. But the disheartening thing is that the strongest #1 black vote in the borough of the Bronx and Lower Westchester, they split up, and that's the district that we actually live in. So what they did was they took Co-op City, which they took the 16th congressional district, which represented a strong black majority vote in that district, which was the northern part of the Bronx, Lower Mount Vernon, Yonkers, and New Rochelle. They broke it up, and how did they did that? They took our strong district, which consisted of Wakefield and Edenwald, and gave it to Jamal Bowman and moved him further north. They took Co-op
So is
City.
Edenwald still?
Edenwald and Wakefield still belong to Congressman Bowman.
But not
Co-op City was taken off and given to AOC in the 14th, which is most of her district is Queens. And then you took the rest of that north and 16th part,
Torres, right?
which was Gun Hill, Eastchester, Olinville, and then you broke that down and gave it to Richie Torres. Now you took one strong district that was strong with black votes and gave them 3 representatives. And what that does is when you were strong together, now you took this little piece. Now this piece now becomes a piece of this big piece over here. This chunk comes a piece of this big piece over here. This piece comes a chunk of this big piece. So you just broke it all up. So now the power that we had in the neighborhood is a strong black vote. You just ripped it apart. Again, voter suppression at its best and its worst. The NAACP has filed a lawsuit, and the Congressional Black Caucus has filed a lawsuit. I'm praying and hoping that they do win, because if not, this is the #1 way to disenfranchise the vote. People are going to the polls next month and in August. I guarantee people are going to be confused when they walk into their polls.
I want you to hold on to that thought. We're going to take a real quick commercial break because I got my own spin on this too. Let me go get where's my kufi? Where's my thing? We'll be right back after this commercial break. Okay, and we're back. So, you just said a lot, and you're absolutely right. But what I want to key in on, right? Shout out to Hakeem Jeffries for getting that done. You said it disenfranchises the black vote. NAACP and who else?
Congressional Black Caucus.
And the Congressional Black Caucus. I want to file a suit against the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus because neither one of them has represented a black issue for foundational black Americans since they've been intercepted. So I mean, we're saying how bad that it's disenfranchising to black voters. Well, the first disenfranchisement has come through by way of them. What has the Congressional Black Caucus has ever done for foundational black Americans specifically? They'll fight for gay rights, they'll fight for immigrants, they'll fight for women's rights, but they've never done anything specifically to address the foundational black American issue as it pertains to systematic white supremacy in the United States. If you look at the mission statement of the NAACP, they'll tell you they do everything. And I challenge everyone that's watching this, go look at the NAACP's mission statement and see if they're doing anything to empower foundational black Americans. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what it was created for initially, right?
Yeah, the injustices that were happening, and I don't want to give the politically correct statement. It was formulated, like many were formulated, because black people were getting dogged, but then it was organized by quote-unquote the so-called white Jews and the blacks and everybody else that got involved in it to try to make it worthy.
And you right on point, because you hitting where I was going with this. And that's good, Mr. King. You're just a step ahead of me, because all of these organizations, Congressional Black Caucus, NAACP, Black Lives Matter. Now, I believe in Black Lives Matter as a hashtag. You know what I mean? That's what it started off being. But what it is today, right, as an organization, I don't have respect for it, because I don't see where they've ever done anything constructive to help push the narrative for foundational black Americans. Naming a street Black Lives Matter way is a nothing burger. It does absolutely nothing for black people. It's symbolic. And so they're now saying how the 4 or 5 founders have bought $6 million homes here and $4 million homes there. But let's be clear. What happened to the billions of dollars that Black Lives Matter has raised? And let's go behind and pull the curtains back and let's see who got that money. And I guarantee you, they probably don't even look black.
They don't.
Right.
And it was exposed maybe about a year or two ago. The gentleman who had trademarked the name and was able to sign up an account. And at that point, I think he raised somewhere between $9 million. And they were trying to figure out, well, how did he get the name? You know, Caucasian guy. How did he get it? And he was raising money up the wazoo out of it. But,
right.
You know, so and to any and everybody.
And the same thing with Me Too. Like, this is what they do. This is what white supremacy gets black desperate faces to do it, to one, speak its talking points.
Yeah.
And two, become the face so you can't see who's really raping them. You know what I mean?
I understand.
So I mean, I don't know. People say, oh, you should. I bumped into someone today in the street. You should run for office. I said never. I'll run away from office, because then that means you get to control what I say, and you know I don't want to do that either. Yeah. I mean, look where it got you.
Yeah, because they couldn't control what I was saying.
Right.
But listen, again, it's a higher power in effect, and do that. You mentioned it correctly, and in order for us to change the society, and again, I go back to a higher power, because when you do talk about the black essence in America, there's always this red flag on everything when you want to talk about the black agenda. And what is a black agenda? Because you can talk about a Latino agenda, a gay agenda, a Jewish agenda, and whatever that agenda is, that agenda, but you never hear anything of a black agenda, because every agenda is black. And when you come after black strong and someone stands up for black, they beat you down for being black. But you can be gay, you can be Jewish, you can be European, you can be whatever you want to be and have a cause. But the minute the black cause wants to step in, really for black change, because the country, we're still getting beat down from that Constitution. People will ignore that we're being beat down by these rules, and then they will get mad at you for calling it out for what you've done to us. You know, like, and
Absolutely.
call you the mad black person or the mad woman or all kind of terms to discredit, as opposed to listen. How about listening to the message? How about listening if it's true what's being said, as opposed to saying how dare you say it? You know, and I think if we can ever get to that point, and that goes back to having strong people who are, and we're going to talk about the black conversation now, because we do a poor job ourselves sometimes. We start talking back to not offending anybody, so we want to assimilate everybody else into the conversation. This is not one of those times that we always have to assimilate. I love my brothers in Yemen. If they have an issue, it's about them. If the Croatians have an issue, it's about the Croatians. If the black American says he has an issue, it got to be about the black American. You can't start talking about somebody else. You're talking about the black American at this point in time.
You hit it right on the, and that's what they do. They'll take, according to our good brother Dr. Claude Anderson, and because we've been under a system called benign neglect since the Nixon era. And what they do, they'll take foundational black American issues and they'll benign neglect it and they reduce it to minority women and children.
Right.
And so then, you know, and I don't have anything against anyone, you know what I mean? I really don't. I just love me and mine the same way everyone loved theirs, and, you know, theirs respectfully.
Yes.
I'm never going to tell Asian people to not look out for Asian people.
Right.
I'm not going to tell West Indian people not to look out for West Indian people. I'm not going to tell gay people don't look out. So I have that same right to look out for my interests without their interference.
Exactly.
And that's really the issue as far as I'm concerned. You know, we got to do a better job in trying to, you know, really call this out for what it is. The truth of the matter is, foundational black Americans have been screaming about freedom and justice and equality since forever. You know what I mean? And we don't need buffers to say we, you know, look at these lazy people that don't take advantage of opportunity, and, you know, that. I mean, I could say that in reverse. I've never fled my country. I never left a failing country to go somewhere else to make it, only to put the native people of that country down.
Right.
I've never done that.
Right.
So when we start talking about failures, look at, you know, we could actually look at the failures that other groups have had. You know, and they can't put their issues before my issues. It's never going to fly. But, you know, with this redistricting thing, I want to kind of bring all of that all the way back. You know who's winning off of that? What group of people?
I'm all ears. Let them know.
The Hispanic community. AOC, Torres. And you know what's crazy? Richie Torres is he's openly gay. He says he's gay, whatever. But and shout out to him. I can respect him for this. He doesn't put a gay agenda before the people. And I can respect him for that. So like, not like a Mondaire, you know. Oh my God, that was horrible. Mondaire and Bowman almost had to go against each other. And now you got Mondaire carpetbagging down in Manhattan.
Trying to go with Manhattan.
I think it's down in Manhattan, talking about the Stonewall. Like, I forgot what district it is, but he says whatever part of that district is where the Stonewall riots began. And I want to be clear about the Stonewall riots, all right? Because I like calling these people out, because they like calling us out. The Stonewall riots were really white men beating up black transvestites, transgender. You know what I mean? Black people don't have a history of being violent to gays. That's the narrative they throw that on us. That's thrown on us, and it's very inaccurate. It's very wrong. Okay. Because if we hated gays the way y'all claim we do, we wouldn't accepted so many entertainers and sports people that were openly gay. And I'll just leave it like that. But there were a lot back then, and there are a lot now in the entertainment business that are openly gay, and we don't care. So, let's stop that. That's a way to continue shaming us. The problem is foundational Black Americans against the world. I digress. We're going to take a real quick commercial break. I think I'm going to take my tinfoil kufi off, and I'm going to go put it back. And we're going to take a real quick commercial break. We're going to come back, and we're going to, chop up. I want to talk about China, and I want to have a little bit of final thoughts, Mr. King. Okay. But we'll be right back, right after this message. And we're back. All right, I put the tinfoil kufi away, and me and Mr. King back. I love when you come down, because I feel like I have someone to talk to. If not, I'll just be ranting. But I want to touch on something real fast, and then I'll elaborate, I guess, on next week. I really believe China is going to invade Taiwan. What I've been doing is following world news and looking at that perspective as well, because we got to know where we fit in this world. Mm-hmm. This country right now is being, we're going through another reconstruction period, believe it or not, and the reality is we're being priced right out. So, like, gentrification, in my humblest opinion, is ethnic cleansing American style. And someone's got to really, we got to pay attention to that. I've noticed, a couple of years ago, I was up in arms about NYCHA being privatized. I kind of understand it now. Mm-hmm. The federal government has gotten out of the HUD business. Mm-hmm. A lot of the housing developments all around the country have been demolished. If you go to Capri Green, they demolished all of those when Good Times was filmed. They demolished all of those buildings and left one as a monument for Good Times. Okay. Newark, they gutted and demolished those housing developments. They've done the same thing in Philadelphia. They've done the same thing in Detroit. They're coming out of the housing HUD business. Right. And so now when I look at NYCHA being privatized, it doesn't look so bad, because if they were to gut and demolish all of the HUD housing projects here in New York City, could you imagine what homelessness would really be like?
Well, I hope they won't. And the state and the governor just signed the New York Housing Trust, which is supposed to be a fund of millions of dollars to restore NYCHA.
Okay, that's
that just happened last week. The mayor, was ecstatic about it. Number of NYCHA tenant presidents who I've been talking with wanted to see that happen, because it's a way to have dedicated money, along with a board from from NYCHA members to government officials to sit on this board. I think it's 9 members or something like that. Sit on this board to making sure that the funding that they raise and get in takes care of facades, takes care of windows, takes care of appliances, take care of counters, just take care of apartments. The federal government did it, and I've always blamed, even when I was in the council, that the federal government was not being called out. The city was asking for $25 billion to fix NYCHA. Well, NYCHA was a federal program, so housing came from. So why could you just give New York, with all the billions and almost $1 trillion was spent during this pandemic?
Can I just jump in real quick? But we've given the Ukraine $80 billion.
Yeah, and we couldn't give New York City for their housing that houses over.
This is what I'm talking about. New Yorkers. It makes no sense, man. and we have to you were very courageous on a lot of issues in city council.
Thank you.
This is why you're sitting next to me now.
I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I got you. But I don't know. We got to find some kind of balance, man. Like, I'm held to a standard. I'm held accountable if I do something wrong as an individual. Whereas if I could show you the same exact thing, there's no accountability. And you see that, and these are going to be kind of like the final thoughts. You see that with this VFW. You see this with Washington, D.C., with the 106,000 vouchers. That's poor management. Yeah. You see it's good to know that they're trying to now make people accountable in the resources that are given to housing, because once upon a time it was an open check policy. And the reality, man, is that look at the debt we're leaving our children behind, man.
Yeah.
Look, I'm looking at like my unborn grandkids and their kids. They're in debt already.
Yeah, they're in debt. Well, they said Social Security might be done in 13 years.
Yeah.
So would that leave us who we looking for Social Security in 13 years?
I could take care of myself. Bring me to the table. We could come up with some kind of settlement, because I've worked all my life.
Yeah. We cash out.
That's right. I'll cash out and invest.
Yeah. And you talk about the economics of things. There was an article story that aired about how cryptocurrency was ripping off those young people under the ages of 35, telling them to be wary. I forgot how much money that was ripped off. $2 million they ripped off these young people in this, Bitcoin cryptocurrency. If you don't know what you're exactly doing, there's scammers out there scamming people, and they're losing their money to this new form of economics that's taking the country and the globe by storm. So.
Time goes quick, huh?
Let's go quick, but I do want to give a last shout out.
Sure.
The Bronx Youth Empowerment Program this weekend, and to the class of 22, to all our graduates. Just want to say, great graduate season. It's been rough and tough for the last couple of years during the pandemic of students trying to navigate the education system, whether they're in college or high school or middle school. The DOE was trying, teachers were trying, stuff got messed up, people were messed up, people were making great decisions, some people were making horrible decisions, and they're still trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, our young students had to endure and navigate all that. So all of you who are graduating this year in the class of 22, I commend you, I celebrate you, and on the 11th of June, we are going to be hosting a graduation celebration, luncheon for the graduates of the class of 22, the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program.
Thank you for always being there for the community, man. We'll be back next week. Shout out to the class of 2022, and maybe I'll bring some of them on on the show next Monday. All right. Until next week. This is Kevin C. Meggett for Millennium TV. We're on all of your Androids. First of all, download Millennium TV right now on all of your devices: iPhone, Apple, all of these gadgets. I never could get it right. This is where I show my age.
We got Samsung, Roku,
Samsung, Fire Stick. Thank you, Mr. King. It's been a minute since I sat in this seat, so y'all out here saving me right now. So I need y'all to, come in and download us, and definitely come and advertise with us. But, we'll be back next Monday, God willing, and y'all have a great week. Thank you.
Catch up with them next week.